Previously in Bad Spanish, Scrubs made an entire episode about why speaking Spanish was important for Carla's identity, and it was pretty good until they ruined it near the end by having a scene with barely recognizable Spanish. It's like they didn't even understand the message of their own episode. And now we have a sort of follow-up. In the previous episode, we saw how Torque was learning Spanish using some tapes that were complete gibberish, by the way. And now he has completed learning Spanish for his wife as a sort of anniversary present. And now we go into one of those classic JD fantasies.
¿Tienes trabajo?
No más queríamos decir hola. ¿Qué pasa, muchachos?
First of all, flawless Spanish from this extra. He's clearly a native speaker. And amazing Spanish from Donald Faison. I don't know if he actually learned Spanish, but he's a good enough actor to make me believe he actually did. His pronunciation is excellent, and I love the attitude. Let's see what happens next.
Buen trabajo, mis hermanos.
Oh my god. So, apparently, he tried to say, "Good work, my brothers." But what he actually said was, "Good work, my humans." And I know, those words are kinda similar in Spanish, but I would expect anyone who speaks Spanish to be able to pronounce them correctly enough so that people can tell the difference, you know?
Lo has tratado con la capación humana básica.
Whoa, okay, so I usually like to point out every mistake, but here I'm just going to have to choose a few of them because he's pronouncing every word wrong, but in a different way. He forgot the S in nos, the P in aceptaron. Instead of compasión, he says capación, which is a fertility surgery.
Ahora serán recompensados con un viaje.
Okay, so he said perecerán, which is, and this is true, not a word. But based on the subtitles, I think he was trying to say ahora serán. How do you mess that up? Then he tried to say recompensados, but he cannot roll his R's. A detail I would often overlook if this was his only mistake in this word, but he also forgot the M, and come on, that one was easy. Viaje means trip, but viaje sounds like a bisexual aje, whatever that is.
El paraíso mágico, conocido como amigo de.
Paraíso mágico conocido como Amigoville. He finally did it. Finally a phrase I can actually understand from this guy.
¿Tu paraíso mágico es un parque?
Donald keeps speaking pretty good Spanish here. He's an oasis in this valley of tears. I cannot find anything wrong with this phrase. And then there's this guy.
Les encantan los picnics a mi gente.
In English, the difference between a rebel and to rebel is where you put the stress, right? And the same happens with a ton of other words. An insult to insult, a protest to protest, an update to update. And in turn, Spanish does something very similar. Lástima means shame, lastima means it hurts, and lastimar doesn't mean anything, that doesn't exist. Now, I hope you can understand why when he says encantan, I was confused for a second until I understood he was trying to say encantan. I admit that the next few phrases from this guy are fine in terms of pronunciation.
¿Quieres un masaje de esas señoritas?
No puedo, estoy casado.
No hay problema.
Yo quiero el frente. Yo te masajo la espalda.
But there is still a huge problem with everything he says in this scene. But before that, listen to this.
Oye, mami lindas!
This phrase from Turk was perfect, just perfect. I loved it. Now about this guy. The biggest problem is not his accent, it's not the words he mispronounces to the point of gibberish, it's not that he said este lugar instead of este lugar.
¿Qué piensas de este lugar?
The problem is that everything he says sounds deeply unnatural and forced. I dare say, it sounds like this actor did not speak a single word of Spanish, was casted simply because of his looks, and he then had to memorize all his lines phonetically and tried really hard to make a northern Mexican accent, something like, Les encantan los picnics a mi gente. But of course, the result was a scene so bad it is shameful. And yet, we have to remember that this actor is innocent. He was hired to do a job, and I am sure he worked hard and did his best. He was simply not the right actor for this particular role. And if the director, Linda Mendoza, or the producers had given a shit, they would have hired a better actor. And in fact, I think they did, if only by accident. Listen to this guy.
¿Tienes trabajo?
Perfect. I know it's just 2 words, but this actor spoke better Spanish in 2 words than this other actor in a whole scene. This guy should have been given this role. But as I've said before, the sad truth is that no one cares. In fact, they care so little they made another shamefully bad scene in this same episode. Here, Dr. Cox wants to trick Torque into revealing he speaks Spanish, and so he says,
Tu esposo piensa que tú estás conduciendo un animal control con easy.
That's not even true.
How did you even understand that?
Yeah, Torque, how did you understand that? Because I am a native speaker and I only understood the first 3 words. I've heard this scene so many times trying to figure it out. The first 3 words are fine. Tu esposo piensa. Normally I would complain that he sounds way too unnatural, but the rest of the phrase is... I don't even know what the mistakes are because I don't even know what words he's trying to say. Based on the subtitles, I have 2 theories about what he could be saying. ¿Tu esposo piensa que tú estás conduciendo un animal control con Easy? Or maybe, tu esposo piensa que tú estás conduciendo un anormal control con Easy. If this is what he's trying to say, then there are several problems in both cases. He said está instead of estás, he said condiciendo instead of conduciendo, and he said either the word animal or anormal so bad, I'm just gonna refer to it as the mystery word because I have no idea what it is. But the biggest problem is the phrase conduciendo un ex control con Easy. Putting aside the mystery word here, I have never in my life heard this expression before. And perhaps you'll get an idea of how weird it sounds if I translate it to English as closely as I can. Your husband thinks that you are driving an animal control with Easy. See what I mean? Sure, you can understand what he's trying to say, but it doesn't sound natural at all. No one uses the words conducir and control in that way, in the same way that no one uses the words drive and control in that way in English. And regardless of what the mystery word is, it should be after the word control, not before it. In Spanish, most of the times adjectives go after the nouns, not before them. In fairness, it could be that this is part of some regional dialect, and perhaps there is somewhere in the world where people use those words like that, but I doubt it. Of course, John McGinley is mostly blameless here. I mean, I wish he had tried harder, but ultimately the director, Linda Mendoza, and the producers are the ones at fault here, because they just didn't give a shit, and as a result produced 2 of the most embarrassing scenes I have ever seen in my entire life. Just to cleanse our ears, perhaps we should see a few examples of good Spanish in this episode. Here is Carla speaking on the phone.
Ay, Dios mío, este hombre está obsesionado con esta idea de Brenner. No, la verdad es que yo le prepararía su desayuno para cena si él me limpiara este apartamento una vez.
Carla complaining about Torque.
Estoy loca por saber lo que me va a decir este hombre.
Carla and Torque gossiping about their friends.
Que ahora podemos hablar de la gente aunque estén en el mismo cuarto.
Como ellos. Te apuesto que ellas 2 semanas están juntos otra vez.
¿Tú crees? A alguna gente no le va a gustar eso.
I don't understand why English speakers always pronounce words like ellos as ellos. Just say it with the G in judge, ellos. Oh my god, I started complaining again. Okay, so let's just hear that Mami Linda again.
Oche, mami lindas!
Yeah, that's the stuff.